There are moments in life when everything feels heavier than usual. The heart becomes tired, the mind becomes restless, and even simple daily tasks begin to feel difficult. A person may smile in front of others while carrying silent pain inside. During these moments, many people start questioning themselves. They wonder why things are not improving, why doors keep closing, and why life suddenly feels so difficult after periods of comfort. Yet often, what feels like destruction is actually preparation. Allah sometimes allows pain to enter a person's life, not to break them forever, but to move them toward a greater purpose they cannot yet see. The pain before a breakthrough is one of the hardest tests because it comes with confusion. A believer may make dua constantly, pray tahajjud, cry in sujood, and still not see immediate answers. Shaitan whispers hopeless thoughts into the heart, making a person feel forgotten. But Allah never forgets His servants. Every hardship carries wisdom, even when that wisdom is hidden behind tears and exhaustion. Sometimes Allah delays relief because He's building strength within the believer. If blessings arrive too early, the person may not be emotionally or spiritually prepared to handle them. Many stories in Islam show that relief often came after intense struggle. Prophet Yusuf, betrayed by his own brothers, separated from his father, thrown into a well, sold into slavery, and imprisoned unfairly. For years, his life looked painful and hopeless from the outside. Yet every painful chapter was moving him toward a greater destiny, written by Allah. The prison that looked like suffering became the road toward honor and leadership. If one part of his hardship had been removed, he may never have reached the place Allah had prepared for him. This teaches believers an important lesson. Sometimes the very thing hurting you today is carrying you toward the life you prayed for yesterday. The heartbreak, rejection, delay, or loneliness may actually be redirecting you away from harm and toward goodness. Human beings only see the present moment, but Allah sees the entire future. What feels unbearable now may later become the reason you thank Allah with tears of gratitude. There are times when Allah allows a person to reach emotional exhaustion because comfort can sometimes make people spiritually asleep. When life is easy, many people forget their dependence on Allah. They rely on money, relationships, careers, or status. But hardship strips away these distractions and reminds the soul where true peace comes from. Suddenly, dua becomes sincere, salah becomes emotional. The Quran feels personal. The heart that once felt distant begins returning to Allah with humility. A breakthrough is not always material. People often imagine breakthroughs as money, marriage, success, or opportunities. But one of the greatest breakthroughs is inner peace. Sometimes Allah changes the heart before changing the situation. A person who once panicked over everything begins trusting Allah deeply. The same problems may still exist, but the heart becomes stronger because reliance upon Allah grows stronger. That spiritual transformation is itself a miracle. The pain before a breakthrough also teaches patience in ways comfort never could. Patience is not passive suffering. It is continuing to trust Allah while carrying pain. It is choosing prayer instead of despair. It is continuing to hope even when life feels silent. Allah loves those who remain patient during darkness because patience proves sincerity of faith. Anyone can worship Allah during ease, but true faith appears during hardship. Sometimes people ask why Allah allows good people to suffer. The answer is that suffering is not always punishment. Often it is purification. Just as gold is purified through fire, through trials, sins are erased through pain, tears, stress, and hardship. Even emotional struggles can raise a person's rank in the sight of Allah. A believer may feel weak on earth while being elevated in the heavens. Many people give up right before their breakthrough arrives. They stop making dua because they think Allah is not listening. They stop hoping because disappointment has exhausted them. Yet Allah may already be arranging the answer behind the scenes. The believer does not see what Allah is protecting them from, what conversations Allah is turning, or what future problems Allah is preventing through current delays. Sometimes the delay itself is mercy. Imagine receiving something before its proper time. A relationship, opportunity, or blessing given too early could destroy a person emotionally or spiritually. Allah gives at the perfect time, not according to human impatience. Every second of waiting carries hidden wisdom. A believer must remember that Allah's timing has never failed. Allah also removes certain things before granting something greater. This is why loss often feels so painful. A person may lose friends, relationships, jobs, or dreams they deeply loved. At first, the heart only sees the emptiness left behind. But later, many people realize those losses protected them from future destruction. Allah removes what damages the soul, even when the person is emotionally attached to it. The second reality many believers struggle to understand is that Allah removes in order to replace with something better. Human beings naturally resist loss. They become attached to people, habits, plans, and expectations. When those things disappear, it feels like life is falling apart. But sometimes Allah is clearing space for blessings that cannot enter while unhealthy attachments remain. A child may cry when a dangerous object is taken away because the child cannot understand the danger. Similarly, believers sometimes cry over losses while Allah knows those losses are protection. The human heart sees temporary comfort while Allah sees long-term consequences. Something may appear beautiful outwardly while carrying hidden harm within it. Allah may remove certain people from your life because they were slowly damaging your Iman, your peace, or your future. A relationship that looked perfect may have carried spiritual destruction. A job that seemed successful may have pulled you away from Allah completely. A friendship that felt comforting may have secretly been poisoning your heart with negativity and sin. The pain of losing these things can feel unbearable at first, but Allah replaces them with what is healthier for the soul. Sometimes Allah removes opportunities because they are not aligned with your destiny. People often become devastated when certain plans fail. They think their future is ruined. Yet later they discover that closed doors saved them from regret, heartbreak, or disaster. Allah knows what would have happened if that path continued. Human beings do not. One of the most difficult forms of replacement is when Allah removes a version of you that no longer fits your future. Hardships can transform a person completely. The old mindset, habits, desires, and priorities slowly begin to change. This process feels uncomfortable because growth often requires letting go of familiar things. But Allah does not transform people without purpose. Every painful lesson shapes the believer into someone stronger, wiser, and closer to Him. Many believers focus so much on what they lost that they cannot recognize what Allah is building. While crying over one closed door, they ignore the spiritual strength being developed inside them. Sometimes Allah removes worldly distractions to give the believer something far greater, closeness to Him. That connection with Allah is worth more than any temporary comfort on earth. The replacement Allah gives is not always immediate. This is what makes the test emotionally heavy. A person loses something valuable and enters a season of emptiness. During that waiting period, the believer must trust that Allah's promise is true, even when nothing is visible yet. Faith means believing in Allah's wisdom before understanding it. There are believers who later look back at their darkest moments and realize those painful seasons saved their lives spiritually. The heartbreak pushed them toward prayer. The loneliness pushed them toward Quran. The failure pushed them toward tawakkul. If life had remained easy, they may never have returned sincerely to Allah. Allah replaces brokenness with wisdom. He replaces arrogance with humility. He replaces heedlessness with remembrance. He replaces emotional dependence on people with dependence on Him. These are priceless gifts, even if they arrive through hardship. When everything feels heavy, it does not mean Allah has abandoned you. Sometimes it means Allah is moving things around in your life for a future you cannot yet see. The pain may be temporary, but the lessons and rewards can last forever. A believer must continue walking through darkness with trust, knowing that Allah never removes something without purpose and never tests a heart beyond what it can bear. There are seasons in life when the heart feels burdened without fully understanding why. A person wakes up tired, carries emotional heaviness throughout the day, and sleeps with worries still sitting inside the chest. Sometimes nothing appears completely wrong outwardly, yet internally everything feels exhausting. The smiles become weaker, motivation disappears, and even moments that once brought happiness no longer feel the same. Many believers experience this hidden heaviness and begin questioning themselves, wondering why life suddenly feels emotionally difficult. Yet often this heaviness is connected to spiritual transformation taking place beneath the surface. The heart was never created only for worldly comfort. Allah created the human soul to seek Him, remember Him, and depend upon Him. When people become deeply attached to worldly matters, their hearts slowly carry burdens they were never meant to carry alone. Anxiety about the future, regret about the past, fear of losing people, financial stress, emotional disappointments, and silent insecurities all begin collecting inside the heart. Over time, this emotional weight becomes exhausting. Sometimes Allah allows a believer to feel this heaviness because He wants them to return to Him sincerely. During easy times, people often become distracted. They rely heavily on routines, careers, relationships, and entertainment to fill the emptiness inside. But eventually, Allah allows the soul to feel the limitations of worldly comfort so that the heart realizes true peace only comes through closeness to Him. This is why some people suddenly feel emotionally empty despite having money, friends, or success. Their souls are searching for something deeper. For now, a heavy heart is not always a sign of weak faith. Sometimes it is evidence that the soul is fighting silent battles. Believers carry responsibilities, disappointments, and emotional wounds that others never see. Some people are hurting from betrayal. Others are grieving silently. Some are carrying years of unanswered du'as while trying to remain patient. Allah sees every hidden pain, even when nobody else notices. The Prophet Muhammad later himself experienced moments of deep sadness. He lost loved ones, faced rejection, experienced betrayal, and carried enormous responsibility. One of the hardest periods of his life became known as the Year of Sorrow because of the emotional pain he endured after losing his beloved wife, Khadija, and his uncle Abu Talib. Even the strongest believers experience heaviness. Feeling emotional pain does not make someone distant from Allah. What matters is where the person turns during that pain. Sometimes the heaviness exists because Allah is purifying the heart. Certain trials remove arrogance, pride, attachment to dunya, or unhealthy desires. Allah's wisdom operates beyond human understanding. Some answers come quickly, while others unfold slowly over years. But every decree carries purpose. Even painful waiting periods are part of a larger story written with divine mercy. Sometimes life begins changing in ways that feel uncomfortable and confusing. Familiar routines break apart, relationships shift, opportunities disappear, and emotions become unstable. A person who once felt secure suddenly feels uncertain about everything. During these moments, many people think they are losing control of their lives. But often Allah is preparing them for an entirely new chapter. What feels like chaos may actually be divine rearrangement taking place behind the scenes. Allah does not move a believer toward a greater destiny without preparation. Big transformations require inner growth, emotional maturity, spiritual strength, and lessons that can only come through experience. This is why certain seasons feel heavy before positive change arrives. Allah is shaping the heart for what is ahead. If blessings arrived without preparation, many people would not know how to handle them properly. A farmer does not plant seeds and expect fruit immediately. The ground must first be broken open, cleaned, watered, and exposed to difficult weather conditions before growth becomes visible. In the same way, Allah often allows believers to experience pressure before the beauty of their next chapter appears. The breaking season is painful, but it creates space for something new to grow. Many believers resist change because they become emotionally attached to their current lives, even when those lives are unhealthy. A person may remain attached to toxic relationships, harmful habits, or environments that slowly damage their soul simply because they fear the unknown. Allah, however, sees what the believer cannot see. He knows which people are draining your peace, which habits are weakening your Iman, and which paths are leading toward future pain. Sometimes He removes stability temporarily to guide you towards something far better. Preparation often happens in silence. A believer may not realize Allah is transforming them because the changes feel gradual. Yet over time, priorities begin shifting. The heart starts craving peace instead of attention. Worship becomes more meaningful. Certain sins lose their attraction. The believer becomes more emotionally aware and spiritually sensitive. These inner changes are signs that Allah is rebuilding the person from within. One of the hardest parts of preparation is uncertainty. Human beings naturally want clear answers about the future. They want to know when life will improve, when the pain will end, and where Allah is leading them. But faith often requires walking forward without seeing the entire road. Allah teaches believers to trust Him step by step rather than demanding complete understanding before moving forward. The story of Hira in Islam reflects this reality beautifully. When the Prophet Muhammad led from Mecca to Medina, the journey involved fear, sacrifice, uncertainty, and leaving behind familiarity. Yet that difficult transition became the beginning of strength, growth, and victory for the Muslim community. Sometimes Allah moves believers away from comfort zones because their future cannot grow where they currently are. There are people who remain trapped in the same emotional pain for years because they refuse to let Allah transform them. They hold on to past wounds, past identities, and past disappointments so tightly that they cannot embrace the new life Allah is trying to guide them toward. Healing often requires surrender. It requires trusting that Allah's plan is greater than personal fears. Preparation also involves spiritual purification. Before Allah elevates a believer, He often purifies their intentions. Success without sincerity can destroy a person spiritually. Blessings without gratitude can create arrogance. Although losing people hurts, there is mercy in discovering truth before investing more years into false relationships. Hidden mercy also exists in emotional growth. Difficult experiences often create wisdom that comfort never could. A believer who survives hardship develops empathy for others, emotional strength, gratitude for small blessings, and deeper understanding of life. Pain softens certain hearts in beautiful ways. There are believers who only discovered the sweetness of prayer after hardship entered their lives. Before the trial, Salah may have felt rushed and distant, but pain transformed prayer into a source of comfort and survival. This spiritual closeness becomes one of the greatest hidden mercies because nothing in the dunya compares to a sincere relationship with Allah. Hardships can also protect believers from arrogance. Constant ease sometimes causes people to forget their dependence on Allah. Success may create pride. Comfort may create heedlessness. Trials humble the heart and remind believers that all strength, provision, and peace come from Allah alone. One hidden mercy many people fail to recognize is redirection. Allah may block one path because another path carries greater goodness. A believer may spend years grieving over closed doors while Allah is quietly guiding them toward opportunities they never expected. What looked like rejection was actually guidance. There are moments when Allah answers du'as through hardship itself. A person may pray for stronger faith, patience, wisdom, or closeness to Allah without realizing those qualities are developed through challenges. The hardship becomes the very process through which the dua is answered. Mercy also exists in delayed understanding. If believers immediately saw all the wisdom behind their suffering, faith would require less trust. Allah wants believers to rely on Him even before everything makes sense. This trust strengthens Iman deeply because it teaches surrender to divine wisdom rather than dependence on human understanding. The hidden mercy behind hardship becomes especially clear on the day of judgment. Believers will see rewards for patience that far outweigh every moment of pain experienced on earth. Temporary suffering will seem small compared to eternal rewards prepared by Allah. When believers begin viewing hardships through the lens of faith, their perspective changes completely. Instead of asking only a why is this happening to me, they begin asking what is Allah teaching me through this? That shift transforms pain into purpose. Allah's mercy is present even when life feels heavy, confusing, or broken. The believer may not understand everything now, but one day the wisdom behind the struggle may become beautifully clear.